What's up?
3, 2. I'm gonna do quiet. I gotta do quiet because walk is
Yes,
sleeping.
I'll do the majority of the clapping. You ready?
3, 2, 1.
Although I don't know if this deserves a clap.
I
I don't
don't know if
know
it
if
deserves it.
this
If anything,
pod.
we should have. If we were meeting the moment of the clap, right? It probably should have been a soft clap.
Yes,
Like almost like a. So that's on
a
me.
waiting clap, maybe
Yeah.
a hesitant clap.
Once again, not meeting the moment. Anyway, welcome on in. It is the Clap Your Hands podcast presented by Coors Light. This is Jack
Yes.
Fritz alongside Eliot Shorr-Parks. As Eliot, I know Groundhog's Day is on Friday, and
Is
I
it?
and I did make the mistake earlier today, and then this is totally on me, and it's not on anyone else. Kind of forgot what a groundhog was and thought it was a beaver. So I thought like
Okay.
a
Well, I feel like they
beaver.
look a lot alike, don't
Dude,
they?
well, according to
I feel
Google,
like aardvark as well, maybe.
aardvark that's a different one.
Okay.
But
Well, we're talking about three different animals.
I feel like a beaver and a squirrel. I guess beaver and squirrel are closer than a groundhog and a beaver. So that was cleared
No
up.
way, that's correct.
I
There's no way that's correct.
totally agree. There's
So I feel like this
0%
is like when
chance
people say a hot dog's a sandwich. Like I get by definition, maybe it's a sandwich, but we know it's not. A
I am so
beaver is
glad.
much closer to a groundhog than a squirrel.
I am so glad that the hot dog as a sandwich thing is pretty much over. Like we don't
Yes.
have to keep having this stupid debate. You're not interesting. You're not funny. It's
Right,
not a good thing.
100%. It's like, well, it is a sandwich. Like, no, bro, it's not a sandwich. I don't know what to
It's a
tell
hot
you.
dog.
It's a hot dog. Like, it just is what it is.
It's as simple as that.
Anyway,
So tomorrow, if you would like to come drown your sorrows,
speaking of hot dogs,
as we wait for this Joel Embiid news, which I have an awful feeling about, just because like they're delaying it a day. That I feel like that's never a good. It's usually second opinion time. If you'd like to come and drown your sorrows in great taste in Coors Light, $3.75 drafts at McGurk's with me and Eliot Shorr-Parks. It's going to be a great time. We've been over this many times, but McGurk's in Horsham. Eliot and I will be there tomorrow, 7:30, hanging 2 and maybe 3 of the
Late.
Sixers game if people are there.
depends how many Coors Lights we have, I guess.
Yeah, either way, it's gonna be a great time. So come on out, hang out with us, and it'll be fun. We'll I guess commiserate together is probably the correct term. So if you missed the news, I don't know how you could miss the news. Joel Embiid goes down last night, and we kind of waited around all day for this MRI news to come out, and Woj tweets right as we get off the air. Shout out to Woj, thanks, appreciate that. That he's going for he's flying back to Philadelphia next 24 hours. Either way, yada yada yada. Joel Embiid's hurt again. How you feel, Eliot?
I got lots of thoughts. I feel like there's so many ways to look at this. One is just the actual news itself and how we should feel about where the team is currently, or where the situation currently is. The other is last night playing him that long, that type of thing. And then I also do have some thoughts on like the media reaction and the fan reaction to all this. So where do you want to start? Do you want to do the right now? Do you want to start from the beginning of the game last night? Like, where do you want to take this?
It's good to recap the beginning of the game. So let's
Okay,
start
so
there.
so my thoughts on last night is I was happy Joel Embiid played. I was happy he took the court. I was happy that with the team having lost 3 straight games with no Tyrese Maxey, no a bunch of players missing, no Covington, no Melton, all those guys. I was happy he played. Like when we last recorded a pod together, I kind of went off on like Joel should have played versus Denver and he needs to tough through things and all that. I still believe that. Like I still believe it is good for Joel when the team needs him to try to play. And so for that reason, I was happy that he played. But I thought it was very apparent, like 5 or 6 minutes into the game, that he should not be playing. Like I think both things can be true. You can want the guy to play, you can respect him for trying to play, but also realize he should not have been out there after 5 or 6 minutes. So I didn't think the mistake was playing. I thought the mistake was playing as long as he did. I've heard you talk about it today on WIP. Like, I agree. He went back in with 5 minutes to go. That's a little different than being in down 14. Like, when he went in, there was still a possibility they win the game.
Mm-hmm.
But watching it yesterday, and he was rusty to start. Like, he missed a bunch of jumpers, but I thought he moved slow. Ricky Sanchez's Daniel, and I apologize, I can't pronounce his name, put together a good video. like showing how Joel normally jumps versus how he jumped last night. And it was clear, like he was not moving well last night. So I would have taken him out way, way earlier than they did. I would not have put him in after he went into the locker room with his knee wrapped and came back. So I thought playing him was okay. Like I thought it was good for him to be in there. I thought I definitely admired that he went out there and tried to play, but he should not have stayed in as long as he did. So I think that was the first mistake they made.
Well, so I thought he looked like this idea that he was rusty or like, and you know, Nick Nurse said after the game, yeah, he felt fine and the rust was there and he wanted to work off some rust. Like he missed 5 games, maybe. Like it's
well, only how many in a row? 2.
Like I don't even like it. So he missed Portland and he missed Denver and he played
right. So 2.
So he missed. So he wasn't on the court for 5 days. You're telling me that the NBA MVP, who can score at will, hasn't been on a basketball court in 5 days and looks that bad and looks that just not into it. Mm-hmm. So when he went out, and I know they try to play it off like he does that all the time, where he leaves the court and then comes back with his knee wrapped. I mean, that's the first I've heard of that. I mean,
well, he normally goes into the locker room. I don't think he normally goes with his knee wrapped. Like that feels like a major distinction there.
I agree. So I just they have to, because at the same time I also know that an athlete, when they're out there, there's going to be competitive juices flowing. So they can't, they are going to go as hard as they can, and because if he went any less than that, then he'd be mocked for that as well. Like it's such a lose situation for Joel seemingly all the time. It's like if he goes out there and plays and gets hurt, it's like, why are you out there? And then when he doesn't go out there and play, it's like, gosh, he's soft. Like you got to fight through things. So it's just a lose situation. But
I kind of think that's just the life of an NBA All-Star. Like unless you're an untouchable. I mean, LeBron obviously gets criticized,
but he has the labels more than I feel like most players, where soft, doesn't play through stuff, or I feel like he's got a lot of labels heading his way, which is more lose than I feel like most NBA All-Stars.
Yeah, so I think some of the labels are unfair, and this is where we get into the media part of it. Like the guy from Denver that asked about Joel's character, like that was an unfair, poorly phrased question. Some of the people who have been saying like the best case for Joel is he misses just enough games where he doesn't win MVP, and everyone can it does sometimes, I agree, feel personal for Embiid. But the reality is when you are a multiple time All-Star and you have the playoff failure that you have, like there's just going to be more scrutiny. Now, that doesn't mean that you can, try to bully him into playing, or that when he doesn't play, when he's seriously hurt, that you like make fun of him. I agree with. But I do think that with the Joel thing, like the situation is complicated because he's had a complicated career. He's hurt quite a bit, not his fault, but he has hurt quite a bit. He has come up small in playoff games. Like that gets tied into all of this. So to your point, he is in a no-win situation for sure. Like if he didn't go out and play, we would probably be doing this pod, and me included would probably be like, why is he not playing? Like, come on, man, the team needs you. And then he does go and play and he looks bad. That's why I think just the mistake here was coming out. I mean, sorry, the mistake here was staying in. The mistake was not playing.
Yeah, I guess I just don't know at what point are you like, that's it, let's pull the plug, because he did play.
We might have reached that point.
But at the same time, I mean, he played until 4 minutes left in the third, which is a majority of the third quarter, and then he came back in when it was 95-90. Because, I mean, at that point, I guess he might as well try to win the game, And if he's telling them he's fine, I don't know what you really want the Sixers to do. I don't know what you want Nick Nurse to do. Like, if it's a 5-point game, Joel tells you he's fine. I know he hasn't looked the part, but still, like, maybe something clicks in the fourth quarter. I think he has to go out there. And yeah, it ended up being 14 points when he got hurt, but it was also flow of the game. He was probably going to come out after the next TV timeout.
Right.
And like Steph just made a 3 before that. So it's really for me just more unlucky than anything. And it just sucks that we're here again, and to make it like more holistic than everything else. Like we have done this podcast for the entire year, and we said we saved the Sixers. Turns out
We're trying.
maybe not, maybe
Yeah.
not. But this whole kind of Nick Nurse, new energy, new vibes. And listen, maybe it comes out that he's fine. I think best case scenario for me right now is just sit him for 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
and maybe he has to get a knee scope, but he'll be 100% ready for the playoffs. Like that's best case for me right now. The thing I would like dread to hear is this is something that's going to affect him all year, and he won't be able to get surgery until the offseason, and then it's bang, we're right back into how it's been. I don't know, the last 4 years it seems like.
Well, so
Like,
that's the interesting decision, and we're jumping all around here, but that's the interesting decision. Like, so what we know as of right now is, and I can never pronounce his name. You're gonna laugh at me. Adrian Wojnarowski.
just say, why can't you just say Woj?
Woj, but I always want to say Woj.
Just say Woj.
Okay, so Woj. So Woj is saying
Why
that
can't
he
you
is
say
on.
Woj?
So that Embiid is going back to Philadelphia. He's not going with the team to Utah. My guess is that he had some version of an MRI in out by Golden State. They didn't like what they saw, or the swelling is so bad that they couldn't do the MRI. And he's going back to Philadelphia for either a second opinion or because they just would rather have him have the MRI there. Regardless, I think the news that's coming is bad. I don't think this is going to be he's day to day and we'll see. What you have to ask yourself is, should the guy just get the surgery? Like, we've seen what it looks like when he tries to push through it, and I admire that he's tried to do it. And from his perspective, like, it has to be incredibly frustrating. His career always ends the season with him injured, and it looks like that's where this could be heading as well. But I do wonder if he would be better off just getting the surgery. The rest of the year is gone, and he goes into next season like knees as healthy as they're going to be, ready to go. And I just like the idea of watching him come back and try to play again when he's not 100%. Like I can see it, I can feel it. Like I can just feel the look on the face when he's like plodding up and down the court. He doesn't feel well, and I admire him for trying. I kind of just would almost rather have him have the surgery, have him be 100%, and the next time we see him, we get like a fully healthy Joel.
Yeah, but then how long does that last? You know what I mean? Like
That's it. That's the season. If he gets a surgery, he's done.
No, but like if he gets surgery and he's done for the year, and then he comes back next season, it's like, oh, his knees are fully healthy, yada yada yada. It's like, okay, like we've already been through this a million times, where he's fully healthy, and then what sucks right now is that I feel like I have to be like, well, when's the bad news gonna come? Like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? So like, I think obviously it's the severity of it, but if he has a chance to play through it, like he has played through knee injuries before in the postseason, has it been as great? No. Has he had moments? Yeah. I can't force him to sit that out again if he can play through it. If it's obviously where he can't play through it, that's a totally different story. But if he can play through it, I have to let him play through it. I have to see him out there and see if he can just do it. And really, Eliot, I think then, and as we keep evolving in the conversation here, then it goes into the trade deadline. And how does Daryl handle it? Does he go get someone who can kind of play with Maxey as like a co-star for a little bit, or is he still thinking on the fringes? If he's done for the year, do they find it palatable to almost tank it and trade Marcus Morris, trade these expiring contracts, trade Toby? Because if he's done for the year, what the hell's the point?
Well, it's an interesting question.
There's a whole lot riding on this MRI is going to come out. I'm with you. Like this feels more like a second opinion that they didn't like the first results, and maybe they're deciding, can he play through it? Like the fact that they didn't come out, I think if they just came out after the first one, it's like, yeah, he's going to miss a little bit, but he's fine. Like usually when they wait, the bad news is coming.
For sure. And look, I know I can sit here right now and say, yeah, get the surgery, be 100%. If it comes out tomorrow he's getting the surgery, like it's going to be devastating news for the season. Like we said, we're going to save the Sixers, but on top of that, I think we both have had real hope for this year. You look at the East is winnable. It's the same two teams we thought. I know the Knicks are playing well right now. There's no great team in the West. So I understand the feeling of if he's out, it's like, man, this is an opportunity blown. And I can just picture already the Woj tweet from
It's so bad.
I
It's
know.
so bad. It's so
I can just picture already the tweet from him tomorrow saying Joel Embiid is going to be week to week or, day to day, whatever. He's not having surgery. They're going to try to rehab this thing and see if they can get him back. And I just feel like we've gone down that road so many times that the idea of driving back down it, like what's that Joe Banner phrase? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again. Like that's what we're doing. And I know it's a doctor and it's an opinion.
Joe Banner. Did you say Joe Banner?
Yeah, isn't that Joe Banner?
I mean, everyone uses that phrase.
Well, it's famous in Philly sports for Joe Banner, I feel like.
I don't know about that.
I'm pretty sure
Banner took that from someone. I'm not
okay. Well, I don't know who said it, but he's the one.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah, I think that's a Joe Banner quote in Philadelphia.
There's no shot. I mean, we'll look it up. We'll have our research team here.
Yeah,
look up
our crack
who
research
came up with
team.
that quote. But there is.
I'm not disputing that he didn't come up with it. I'm saying when you think of that quote, you think of you think Doug Peterson came up with the gold standard.
No, Jeff Lurie came up with the gold standard.
But Doug Peterson said it.
No, Doug Peterson said the new norm. Have you ever,
oh yeah, you're right.
Have you ever covered the Eagles before? Do you know what the football team is?
Okay, but do you think Doug Peterson came up with the new norm?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's a very famous quote that I feel like if Joe Banner came up with it, it'd be more attributed to Joe Banner rather than.
Okay, fair. So it's like
I'm pretty sure it's just the dictionary definition of insanity.
Yeah. So it's like the Michael Scott thing where it's like Michael Jordan's or Wayne Gretzky / Michael Scott. But regardless, the point I'm making is
the famous Joe Banner quote.
Yes. Going down the path of having him rehab this and having him be like, he's going to tough through it. And like, I just feel like I can see how that ends. Like I can feel it in my bones. I know how this ends. It ends with him coming back. He plays well. Then it hurts him for a little bit. Then he's out. Then he plays really well in the first round of the playoffs. Then in the second round, he misses game one. Like I've seen this movie 1,000 times. So while I do not want him to have the surgery, obviously, like the worst thing in the world would be the first clap your hands night. We're talking about Joel being out for the year. Like there is part of me that wonders if it's just the smarter move because Joel has shown that while I admire he tries to play through things, I don't know, man. Like he's not like a guard. Like his body's big. He gets out of shape quickly because of how big he is. Just feels like trying to rehab this thing might not be the best move. Now, to your point about the trade deadline, it's an interesting one because I think if you know Joel is out, like you don't go around the fringes. But let's say you can still get Murray, or you can get Levine, who I think they're not going to get at this point. But let's say they do trade for Murray. Like Maxey and Murray, does that get you to the second round? And if it does, who knows what happens there? So if Embiid's out and they don't make any trades, then yes, the season is over. We're thinking about draft picks. We're thinking about free agency space. But if they can go and trade for somebody like a Murray or a Levine or LeBron's, or Jimmy Butler, like if they can go trade for somebody like that, then they do have a chance to make a run. Like they would be underdogs and anything, and it would have to fall into the category of anything can happen. But who knows? Like the Celtics go cold in the second round, and all of a sudden they're the Heat, where they're in the finals all of a sudden. And also, wouldn't it be such a Joel thing for them to get out of the second round without him?
Oh, I mean, like I would actually be rooting against the Sixers at that point. Like,
it'd be tough to take. Agreed.
I simply would have to root against the Sixers if Embiid's done for the year, and they might win in the second round.
So if Joel's out for the year, how are you attacking the trade deadline?
If Joel is out for the year, I am stripping it down and trading everything I can. And
so you're punting on the year.
Yes, 100% punting on the year. Rather than
the issue with that, though.
But you're trading assets for what? It's like, what are you trading assets for?
Well, you're trading for guys that you think you could get this offseason. So let's just use who's even the biggest free agent at this point? Paul George, I guess. Like let's say Paul George. Say you have an opportunity to acquire Paul George.
Yes.
If
LeBron opts out.
Yeah, LeBron, Paul George. Okay, we'll use LeBron. Let's say you have a chance to get LeBron right now. Does LeBron, Maxey, Toby, Paul Reed, who's now like the mid-range king and basically a Joel Embiid light, does that get you into the conference finals? I mean, if you don't trade for somebody now, the tough thing about the offseason is you can't sign these guys until the new league year, and you have a lot of your own players you have to sign. Now, they can go over the salary cap for their own players, but they can't really do that until they sign the new guy, and you can't go over the cap for a new guy. So it's just tougher to figure out that way. Extending Maxey's tougher. Re-signing Batum is tougher. Knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but re-signing Toby, if you want to do that, it's just tougher to pull off if you haven't traded for the guy. So if there's someone you think is a long-term part of this, like a Murray, or someone that you think you might want to have interest in on this offseason, like a LeBron or a Paul George, then I still think you do it now, even if Embiid is out for the year.
Yeah, I think that's a fair counter. Obviously, those guys. So, all right, if those guys are available, right, and you can get them, you can get the LeBron, Paul George.
Your boy.
I don't know if I do it for DeJounte Murray, but
I think Murray makes a ton of sense. But go ahead.
I don't know if I would do it for him. But if it's one of those two that I can get, and you're thinking this year and also next year, sure. If those guys are off the table, again, I'd probably just strip it down and start over. Not start over, because you still have Embiid and Maxey and cap space for whoever else. But yeah, it's going to be. I just. Is he really going to be done? Like, are we going to be sitting on our way to McGurk's tomorrow night, and it's going to be the news drops that it's done for the year with a knee injury? Like,
no, I think what it's going to be is he's going to try to rehab it. He wants to play. Like, I think that's what's going to happen.
Probably.
But we know where that goes. And I guess
but at the same time, he can't just sit. Like, he can't just sit for the year.
If he needs surgery, then he can just sit.
I know, but if he needs surgery, but he can play through it, like, he's got to play through it. He's done it before. But if you get the right guy, if you can get the right guy at the deadline, then it should make his job that much easier. It should make it easier. Like, you don't have to punt on the year, Eliot.
That's a good point by you. Like, so if you go and get a Levine or LeBron or Jimmy or Murray, then Embiid doesn't have to come.
How does he keep ending up in that?
Well, because he's the ultimate guy. Although, honestly, Jimmy Butler might be the ultimate guy now. Like, we'll just completely sidetrack. I think trading for Jimmy, let's just assume Embiid's fine and he's going to play, which is obviously a big if. But Jimmy would be perfect on this team. Him, Maxey, and Embiid. Like, I think Jimmy, obviously playoff Jimmy, he knows Embiid. It's like the one player in the league that we know Embiid has a great relationship with. I think he complements Maxey well. Like, I would be so in on a Jimmy Butler trade. Not to mention it kills the Heat, which would be another additional bonus to the trade.
So, and this is for anyone out here listening, or yourself, Eliot, if you would like to start the campaign. But there is just a perfect, and I mean perfect, #/campaign for Jimmy Butler, and it's called Gimme Jimmy.
It's so good. I heard you say it on the air. I wanted to let you drop it, but it's so good. Have you tweeted it yet?
No.
Okay.
This
might have to be a clap your hands tweet.
I am stuck in a conundrum, right? Because on one hand, I see the LeBron thing right in front of me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where 2 firsts, Toby, and I can get LeBron here.
Did you put a poll out there on that?
I did put a poll out there on that.
You did put a poll out there? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Not that I've gotten
I was gonna say
strong backlash to any polls that I've put out.
Yeah. Have you put out any other polls? Yeah, it feels like you've been
I've been laying low.
Fun times.
So I did put a poll out there, and people, once again, not the nicest.
Well, it just shows the fact that you could say, would you trade Toby and 2 1s for LeBron? And people are like, screw you. There's just no winning right now. There's no winning.
And by the way, yes won the Twitter poll, by the way. So
of course it did. Yeah. And I'm sure the majority of callers would do it.
So there's the LeBron thing that's staring me in the face. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Butler, 100%. Like, just the idea of getting Jimmy back here, righting the wrong. Right the wrong of the Ben thing. And then, all right. I know he's probably cooked. I know it. And shame on me, because I've watched him and I've lost a lot of money on him. But you want to talk about a guy who's been there and knows how to get. The
look in your eyes right now. People need to go back to YouTube and watch this. The way you said a guy that's been there, it was like Angels in the outfield or something like that. Like, it was like absurd. Go ahead.
Guy that's been there.
Yeah.
Knows what it takes to get the job done. Top 5 shooter of all time. I'm still thinking about Clay. I'm just saying, man. If they blow it up, and they're 4 games under 500 right now. I think they're like the 10 seed in the West.
Yeah.
This would be way more contingent on Embiid being healthy, because Embiid, Clay, and Maxey, like, Embiid and Clay would play perfect off each other. Like think
Yep.
about how Redick and him were. Um, I'm monitoring the Clay situation. I'm not
What
ready
would
to
you
make
trade
it
for Clay?
like
He's a free
obviously
agent too, by the way.
he is a free agent. He is a free agent. I mean, obviously, probably a one and Toby and whatever to make
Toby
it
or
work.
one and Marcus Morris or whatever.
Sure. Or I
Yeah.
mean, it probably costs. Or maybe I might. I hope it wouldn't cost 2 ones. Bobby Marks, the former Nets GM, threw out 2 ones for him. Which
Well, I
feels
wonder
like
if they have a bad contract. Like, what's Wiggins on? Or Chris
I know.
Paul or something. Like, I wonder if you have to take back bad money with
but
Clay.
I mean, but how do you even make that work salary wise? Because Clay's like, I think Clay is around Toby's contract. So
It would have to be everything. Like Toby, Marcus Morris, Covington for, let's say, like Wiggins and Clay. And then you maybe put 1 first-round pick in there. Would you do that?
Well, they might want to. They actually Wiggins is worse than Chris Paul because I think Chris Paul's only a 1-year deal.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just like and the Paul George thing I think is interesting too because Zach Lowe kind of threw out there he hasn't signed that extension yet. I think the Clippers want him to sign that extension, and he keeps saying like the Sixers know that, like not saying. They're like I just saying the Sixers know that he hasn't. So maybe there's something there. We know Morey's been the second most active GM in the sport since he took over,
and especially with stars. Like if you can acquire Paul George, you do it regardless of Embiid, in my opinion. And you take Paul George and Maxey, and then you have a chance to re-sign Paul George this offseason.
Yeah. Although there is like some playoff stuff with Paul George that I'm like,
yeah. Well, look, I mean, it worked out well with Doc and Harden. Why not bring in? I mean, his nickname is Playoff P. I know he doesn't live up to it all the time, but his nickname is Playoff P.
They're like there's I don't know. I know you don't know who this is, but there was a pitcher a couple years ago named James Shields, and dude, he was good in like 2008 in the postseason, and he got the nickname Big Game James. And then from that point on, he was like the worst big game pitcher, but they kept calling him it. And it was like.
There was the postseason where there was the postseason where Playoff P was really bad, and it was used in like a condescending way, like it was mocking on Twitter. So you're right. I mean, he is someone with playoff failure, but regardless of Embiid, I would acquire him. Man, you know, I've been thinking throughout this pod. It almost feels like we're doing the pod as if Embiid is done. Like that's the feeling I have. It's just waiting for it to happen.
Well, it's not even. It's just a matter of how bad is it at this point for me. Like if I would be downright shocked if tomorrow it's like, yeah, he'll be back. He's gonna miss 1 game in Utah and he'll be
back on Saturday versus the Nets.
Yeah. Like I just would be, and it sucks because it's like I again, like I can't believe we're here again. I can believe we're here again, but I can't believe we're here again. It's like. This year felt so different, and to have like Jonathan Kuminga land on his leg in a game that they were down by 14 points, it's like of course, because this is how it has to be every year for him.
Right, so let me ask you this:
like, why is it always? It's always a freak injury. It's always a freak injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue all injuries are freak, but so let me I'm just saying, like, what injury are you like? Well, that makes sense, but let me ask you this: if let's say tomorrow you find out Embiid needs surgery. Are you doing the deadline with Embiid's future in mind? Like, is there a world where if Embiid needs surgery and he's out the rest of the year, but next year he's going to be healthy, but like he'll be what, 31, 30 with bad legs, bad feet. Like he's someone that obviously is injury prone, clearly. Do you make the deal at the deadline thinking about what player complements Maxey best or what player complements Joel best?
But I think the players that are available, they complement both of them. You know, they're already thinking about moving Maxey off the ball. If you bring in Jimmy, you bring in LeBron, you bring in Paul George, like it's all complimentary to Maxey regardless. Like who are you bringing in that's taken away from Maxey? Like
so like LeBron is more of a win now player.
Of course.
Well, no, I'm just saying like LeBron and Jimmy Butler are win now players.
But who are you trading for that's not a win now player? That's
Murray.
Grow with you? Sure, I guess.
Murray's a combination. Murray's win now and he's young. But like I think with Murray, you then look and go, are Maxey and Murray the like future of this team? And Joel, when he comes back, is obviously a great player. Does it? I mean, I guess it's like a different version of Trey and Murray. but
yes, it's a different version of
yeah,
Trey.
that's true.
DeJounte is probably the point guard. He like brings
Yeah.
the ball up more versus Trae Young.
Well, they would
Like,
still have Embiid, but I mean, Embiid becomes like a second fiddle in a way.
well, what you have to do is I think a mistake would be continuing to bank on Embiid.
Yes, that's
Like,
what I mean. Yeah.
and if he's there, he's there. You have to wonder how healthy he is when he's there. Like to continue to do this. Like Joe Banner once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing
Yes.
over and over again. It's unfortunate. You just cannot. It's like he's there, but you can't worry about building your team always around Joel Embiid. You kind of just got to go do it and hope he's there.
So I have a media thought on all this. Do you have anything else on the trade?
No.
Okay. So the report that Joel played in the game because of the backlash from media and fans. If that is the case, and who knows if that's the case, it probably means like a few people told, I believe it was Sam Amick that reported this. A few people told him that. Like, it doesn't mean it's the whole organization. But if that is the case, like, that is incredibly disappointing on so many levels. It's incredibly disappointing that the team like thought this and still allowed him to play. Like, that's ridiculous. And I am somebody that checks my Twitter mentions. And there are certainly days where it impacts me. Like, if I'm coming in to do a pod or the radio, I think about what people say on Twitter. And there are definitely days where it impacts me. But Joel, man, like, you can't make decisions based off that. I respect if you went out there and you wanted to play because the team had lost a few in a row and you wanted to get out, like, that's one thing. But if he really played last night because of the fans and the media, that's very disappointing. And I'm not going to say it's more on him than the media and the fans, but the fans and the media are always going to have opinions on things. Like, it's always going to be the case. You're never going to please them. Like, we just talked about it. And if he just played because of that, like that, I'm very disappointed in Joel for that, more so than mad at people for being mad at him.
But it's almost like he wants to prove them wrong. You know what I mean? Like, he wants to prove them wrong and be like, you're not gonna. But
that's just never gonna happen.
I know, but it's hard. I mean, it's a really hard thing to do. It's a hard thing.
I agree, it's hard.
I think there's a disconnect, right? Where the older people hear that and they're like, oh, you gotta block it out. And then there's you and me and other people that are online, and Joel's definitely online. Where it's like, we're like, no, like, screw that. Like, I'll go out there and play. So,
but we know we should block it out.
I know, and I think he does block it out, but it might not even be Twitter. I mean, it could
be ESPN. It could be, yeah.
I mean, he had his coach asked about his character,
right? Like Kendrick Perkins. Yeah, like you're right.
So like, if a guy is saying, is this a testament to Joel's character? By the way, Jokic not playing in OKC tonight.
I know, ducking Chet,
ducking that team.
The Chet flu.
The classic. Who doesn't have that? I sort of get it. Like, I just sort of get it. And sure, like, do you want him to not pay attention? Of course, but he's a younger athlete, and this is kind of how it is. And he's always been online. Like, he's always been online. My bigger thing, and I talked about it on the air today, is like, I just think it's so dumb to have the arbitrary 65 game thing.
I agree with that.
Either like, a part of your criteria as a voter for this stuff is you have to play a certain amount of games. That's fine. That's your decision. I don't like that it's like the NBA is making that be your decision and stuff like that. Like, let voters have their own criteria, and if it takes them out of the MVP, it takes them out of the MVP. But I do believe that a portion of why he played last night is, I have to have a certain amount of games for the MVP. I feel pretty good. Now, you could have the contrary argument of, should he be thinking about the MVP? Is that a faulty? Is that faulty? But it's also like, it's right there for him. I don't know how you tell him to not go for it. I think, and this is probably the most Seltzer-ish thing that I've said on this podcast, but athletes are human beings, and these guys.
Oh, there it is.
Beings. I know,
yeah,
but it's true. It's
another Celtic thing. Cliches are cliches for a reason.
Yeah, sure. Did he take that from Jalen or no?
No, I don't think he did. He's been saying that since before Jalen.
Okay. But But like, if you're Joel Embiid and the MVP is sitting right there, and like you can only miss a certain amount of games, and he just sat in Portland probably to make Saturday look a little more
Right.
legit, I feel like I would do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like if I was in Joel, I can't be like, oh no, I should only be thinking about the postseason.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how I don't think that's how athletes work.
I 100% agree. You know how I feel about the MVP. I think shaming people for caring about the MVP is dumb. Like
this is bad. I set you up for a soapbox.
Yeah, everybody in their own profession would very much like prioritize multiple things. Like obviously, and guess what? Like all these people tweeting like winning is what matters most. Like duh. We all know winning is what matters most. But that doesn't mean along the way other things don't matter. And if Joel cares about the MVP, then yes, like I'm fine with that. Like we talk about Jokic has 2 MVPs, we talk about Giannis has 2 MVPs. MVPs are used to decide who goes into the Hall of Fame. Like I think I am fine with Joel prioritizing that. To your point about the 65 game rule, I think it's incredibly dumb. Like if we are going to vote, MVP is a subjective thing. If it's not going to be fully subjective, then just make it whoever averages the most combined points, rebounds, and assists. And that's the MVP of the league. If we're going to put like criteria on it, where we're going to take away people's ability to be subjective, then just decide it that way. Like, I think it's unfair to players where they feel like they have to force it. If someone misses 30 plus games, they're not going to win MVP. Like we're talking about a difference of 5 games here, where maybe if you're at like 62 and someone else that's really close to you is at 68, maybe that sways things, but let the voters decide. I 100% agree. I don't think it should be a rule. I think it's dumb, and I think it's going to end up getting players hurt. And maybe is this one of the reasons why Joel got hurt? Maybe, and if it is, that's incredibly unfortunate. But I agree. I think it's a dumb rule.
Well, and I think it's so the NBA just trying to cover for themselves. Like they're worried things that I believe they care more about than player safety. One, dollars and making money through TV contracts. Yes. Like the TV contracts are basically like, hey, what the hell? Like you got to have these guys.
None of these guys are playing.
None of these guys are playing. Like they have to get out there and do that. So they're worried about that. And obviously, and I feel bad for the fans that do pay to go down there and see players and they don't show up. But like, I just don't know. I don't know what they're supposed to do. Like, I don't know what they're supposed to do. If a guy's hurt, the guy's hurt. I feel like we haven't the load management thing has kind of calmed down a little bit. And like, listen, if it comes down to whether or not an owner wants to pay guys or, all NBA, like the 65 game thing, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
I think it'll be gone next year. I think this is the only year it'll be here.
Well, sick. It might have gotten Joel Embiid hurt.
I agree. That makes it even worse. Yeah.
And I feel like it just. It affects him, I feel like, way more than any other player. Like, he's the 7'2" guy. He's the one that has to run up and down the court. He's the one that...
It's a good point.
Plays, like, is diving for loose balls and whatever and really goes after it. So, like, I feel like it always affects Embiid more than any other player. Like, Kawhi was just sitting out, because of the load management thing. He probably could have played and pushed it. And I think Kawhi is a major reason why this exists. But like Embiid, I feel like just gets penalized by it so much more than other NBA players.
I agree, and I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. It is a fair one, an interesting point. It does impact larger players more. Like it just does. Like it's harder for Joel to play 82 games than it is for Trae Young. Like it's harder for Joel to play the 65 games than it's going to be for Tyrese Maxey, just because of his size and how hard it is on him physically. So you put him in a situation where, like, should he dive for loose balls? Like, like, should he play his game differently, knowing that if he gets under 65 games, he can't make all NBA, he can't be MVP, and all NBA, like that impacts his salary. Like that impacts like what his max contract could be. So I think it's a really good point. And the rule is very dumb, like for sure. The rule is very dumb. And it's just so frustrating that, of course, Joel is the player that's becoming like the poster child of it.
Yeah. It stinks. And I hope tomorrow we get good news. Again, like I think I'm rooting for he's getting his knee scoped and he'll be 100% healthy for the playoffs, but he's going to miss 3 weeks. The interesting part about that is, okay, the Sixers are the 5 seed right now. Like, are they going to end the year as a 7 seed?
Oh, so this is my last thought I had. If they're not the top 2 seed, I don't really care. Like if you're not going to get game 7 at home versus Boston or Milwaukee, like I'm not afraid of going to New York for game 7. I'm not afraid of going to, whoever ends up 5, 6, 7. Like I think to a certain point, if you don't think you're going to be a top 2 seed, you have to kind of stop worrying about it and just prioritize being healthy for the playoffs.
When are you gonna give me an ounce of credit, just an ounce of credit for the Knicks thing? Like,
yeah, you deserve credit for the Knicks. I agree. You deserve credit. I slept on them.
I don't think they've lost since Spike announced he was leaving.
I did hear that. Yeah. It's like the anti-Rod. Like Rod comes here and the teams all start winning. Spike comes here, the Eagles collapse. Like it just, yeah.
No, I will say, in Spike's defense, again, I'm not sure if he hosts a Sixers pod, but
yeah, he's probably watching.
In his defense, he was able to get the job done. In 2017,
it's a good point. He got it across the line. Yeah,
true. Rod has not shown the ability to do that.
Yeah,
Rod has been a poster child for close but not closer, not good
enough. The Buffalo Bills of radio
program directors.
Yeah, program directors.
That's probably fair. But either way, just hoping for the best tomorrow. And
look, we'll be at McGurk's either way.
We'll be at McGurk's either way. $3.75 Coors Light.
Yes.
In honor, maybe in.
We'll put him up for Joel. One way or the other, we will be thinking and talking about Joel.
Yeah, I don't know how locked in we'll be on Jazz Sixers, but
yeah.
Either way, hoping for good news tomorrow. And Groundhog's Day on Friday. Very fitting that this is what we're talking about. So it's good to be back. Good to really. I think this is indoctrinating ourselves into real Sixers podcasting. Lore.
Absolutely. It is funny that like we're starting the Coors Light thing, which I'm super excited about. We're going to be going to a bunch of different bars, and like Joel might be out, but I'm hopeful that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, it's what it is.
It is what it is.
Either way, come hang out tomorrow at McGurk's. Eliot and I will be there 7:30 on, hanging out, and we'll have some Coors Light, talk some Sixers, talk some Eagles. Don't bring up AJ Brown. And,
we'll talk polls.
Yeah. Hypotheticals, no rumors.
Yeah, no hypotheticals. Let me one last thing.
Okay.
If we can't have fun with sports hypotheticals, like what are we doing, guys? It was a hypothetical. We're just having fun. Like it's, yeah.
No, not allowed. Yesterday I learned. There it is. That's the line. That's the one.
The Patrick Surtain. Something tells me you won't be bringing up the Patrick Surtain trade. It will be really funny if they trade it for Patrick Surtain. If they trade AJ Brown for Patrick Surtain, I think like you get the studio named after you or something like that.
Hold on, man. Final point on this. So sometimes you got to have a feel, right?
Yeah.
I nailed the Belichick thing. Like nailed Belichick. Nailed LeBron,
your definition of nailed is a little loose, but AJ's answers certainly feel like smoke to fire. You might have set the fire without knowing, but the smoke is certainly is there.
Yeah, not great. But either way, we can discuss it all tomorrow. And if you want to see Eliot and I talk about Bill Belichick,
Jack say what else he was correct about. We'll be doing that from 7:30 on at McGurk's.
Well, listen, if you can't pat yourself on the back, who can?
Amen, buddy.
All right. For Jack Fritz, for Eliot Shorr-Parks, this has been another edition of Clap Your